Out of the depths I cry to you, O Lord. Hear my voice. Let your ears be attentive to the voice of my supplication. If you, O Lord, should mark iniquities, who could stand? But there is forgiveness with you, so that you may be revered. I wait for the Lord. My soul waits for the Lord. And in God's word, I hope. My soul waits for the Lord more than watchmen for the morning, more than those who watch for the morning. O Israel, hope in the Lord. For with the Lord there is steadfast love, and with him is great power to redeem. It is God who will redeem Israel from all its iniquities. Friends, this too is the word of the Lord and the poetry of the faithful. Thanks be to God. Well, without divulging too much information about my family, or too many differences that my wife and I have encountered over 36 of marriage, there are several things that we still laugh about today. Growing up, in my home, we had one of those living rooms that you never went into. We passed through it on our way to the dining room, but there was no TV in there. There was no stereo. There was certainly not a recliner where one might actually relax. All of those things were in the family room. And that's where we spent most of our time, after the kitchen, of course. And while my parents were not like my grandparents, who actually had plastic on their furniture, and I see some of you, how many of you are willing to confess that even today you still have plastic on your furniture in your house? Anybody? Or you just don't want to admit it? Yeah. My parents were not that bad, but we still did not go into the living room. You would never dare to go just lay on the couch. You wouldn't put anything on the little round table next to the green velvet chairs. You certainly would never light the candle on the coffee table. God forbid you would actually light a candle. Now, I guess that's not really fair to say, because according to my dad, who will probably deny it today, you actually always had to light the candle so that the wick got black, so it looked like you actually used it, but you never really did use it. Shan and I still laugh about that today, primarily because she was raised in a culture where candles were burning all the time, especially this time of year. In Denmark, in November, the sun doesn't rise until after 8 a.m. and it sets before 4 p.m. So that's not even 8 hours of daylight. And so candles, they're everywhere, especially this time of year. It's likely why that word hygge, which some of you perhaps have heard before, is so common today. And not just in Denmark, but around the world. Hygge means cozy. And it's a coziness that often comes about this time of year with candles. Candles that bring warmth to a very cold world. Needless to say, it didn't take too long for these two worlds to collide. Shan thinks that candles are to be burning all the time. And so they're all over our house. It's why when you walk into my office, even today, you will often see one burning on my desk. Usually a smelly one, because I like smelly candles. Candles create an atmosphere of warmth. They soften things. A home, a room, an office. But it doesn't have to stop there. The warmth of a candle can also become an all-consuming heat. Candles can start great fires, blazes. The warmth of a candle can do so much more than provide just a cozy atmosphere. They can bring light into those places where darkness and dreariness reign. Candles are so much more than just cozy, because they have the capacity to penetrate even the darkest corners of the world, bringing hope, bringing peace, bringing joy, and bringing love. That's why this year's Advent and Christmas sermon series is titled The Candles of Christmas. And today's theme, as you've already heard, marking the first lighting of the candle on our Advent wreath, is hope. Now, I touched on the subject a couple weeks ago, last week, in fact, when I talked about the reign of Christ. And I sought to challenge us to stay strong, to hang in there, even when we're waiting for whatever it is that we're waiting for. Kay, in her Faith in Action class this morning on poetry, did a wonderful job of talking about hope and how it's something that we are called to live into all the time. This morning, though, I want to look at it from a slightly different angle. As we prepare for the celebration of Christmas, for this reminder that Jesus has come into the world, that God is here, I think we're prone to want to think that some of the gifts of Jesus, gifts like hope, are gifts for us to possess, something that we have or we don't have. But in this morning's passage, I'm wondering if we are given a slightly different perspective on it. In what has become a very familiar Advent passage, the writer says in verse 6, "My soul waits for the Lord more than watchmen for the morning, indeed, more than watchmen for the morning." That's where we were last week. We're waiting for hope to come. But this week I want to focus on the previous verse. This week I want us to focus on verse 5 that says this, "I wait for the Lord. My soul does wait, and in God's word do I hope." In God's word do I hope. Unlike so many other passages on hope in the Bible, this one is linking God's word with hope. And God's word, we need to remember, is more than just letters on a page, as in the Bible. But God's word is also what? Or should I say, who? Jesus, right? Jesus is the living word. And so the author of Psalm hope-filled way is something that I need to be living out. So this morning, we think about it as something we give. How can we be hope bearers in what is so often a hopeless world? If you saw my Wednesday devotional 2 weeks ago, then you know that although this morning is the first Sunday in traditional celebrations of Advent, in Celtic Christianity, Advent began back on November 15th. In Celtic celebrations, like Lent, Advent is 40 days. And so it's marked beginning on November 15th, and it's marked by the putting of a single candle in the window of a family's home. And that image is just one more reason, I think, why candles are such an important part of our Christmas and Advent celebrations. And that candle that's put in a window is not just to acknowledge that the family that lives there is Christian. It's not just to acknowledge the beliefs of the people who live in that house. According to the accidental pastor, someone that I follow regularly on YouTube these days, she says that it's put in the window to let everyone in the town know that Jesus is living in that house. That the Spirit of God is inhabiting those who dwell there, and that should impact the way one looks at that house and those people who live there. They are people that can bring light into the lives of others. Anyone who encounters the residents of that home are encountering Jesus. And that image is such a powerful one for me. And just as Jesus is all about God's hope, we who claim to be his followers, we too can also be about giving hope to those who are around us. So how do we do that? How do we bring hope to others? This morning I just want to put out two things that we might do to help us become better hope bearers to our world. First, oh, that we would all listen more than we talk. To become aware of the hopelessness in other people's lives, we need to learn to listen. Hope will only come from us when we learn to do a better job of doing that. Hearing other people share their lament, their struggles, giving them space to just vent, to talk about those things in their lives that are weighing on them, that are hurting them, that are destroying that life-giving spirit inside of them. Giving them hope only starts when we listen to those needs, when we give them room to just tell their story, when we ask questions, perhaps at times that allows them to go into greater detail. But more than asking, more than speaking, it's just listening. We become hope bearers when we learn to do a better job of listening. That's when people find release in the simple telling of their stories. And then after learning to listen, we need to recognize the art of laughter. Everyone knows that laughter is the best medicine, but did you know that there is a direct link between a person's ability to laugh and to the degree that they feel hope? There's a direct link between the two. Several years ago, a study at Texas A&M University revealed that laughter has the capacity to transform even the faintest glimmer of hope to an eternal spring. I just found this study online this past week